So the first question, Amanda, really what we wanted to find out was, before you became the artistic director of Eclipse, you are an artist, a theatre director, a producer, no doubt. So can you tell us a little bit about that artistic journey that you've had to get to where you are? The highs, the lows, the learnings, the advice? Because this is the grail for every artist, I'm sure.
That's a series, isn't it? That's a whole series, but I'll do my best. I'll try and keep it succinct as possible. Before I got jumped onto the great ship Eclipse, I celebrated 30 years in the business in January 2020. So I started off January 2020 and really celebrating what had been achieved, what I'd got through, what challenges had been met and faced and rested to the floor. But really just celebrating the people that, I've had the pleasure of and privilege of working with and mentoring, supporting and just journeying with. So I can suppose start from that point, really. I'm raised in London, but I've been in Yorkshire for most of my adult life. So I have a clear understanding of the national conversation because of that, really. And I first came into the north to study in a university in Manchester, and studied what was called a recreational arts for the community.
It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it?
Well, basically just making arts for the community. I mean, I was a performing artist and I was trying to find my way. And in that space, I was the baby of that year group. I was surrounded by what was mature adults. We were about 25 at the time, but I thought they were ancient. I was in the thick of it with the communities. I was in Moss Side. I was in the real spaces, which felt like home to me because I'd come from where I'd come from in London. And it was really important for me to kind of understand the strength of the arts within the community, because when it came down to the way that I'd been trained and thought about the arts, there was nothing like my family that could tell a story. I was going into spaces where they were telling me how to tell stories. I'm like, but my auntie tells that better.
Yeah.
Right. So I was,
there's no vibe in that story.
Nothing going on. So in terms of my dad's a sound system man, had a heavy bass line, just I grew up in the arts. And so then you go into the training of the arts and you have to kind of reconcile the differences and take the best of both worlds, really. So studying, went into fast forwarding, just basically touring as an actor up and down the country, up around took up the whole of Yorkshire. I worked with Red Ladder, worked with Proper Job, all kinds of theatre companies that gave me a contract and gave me an opportunity. Went to Lincoln for a while. That was interesting. And then
I can see that you have some memories of Lincoln have come up.
Yeah, Cully Thari. I got to mention Cully because Cully was Red Ladder's AD at the time.
Yeah.
And she was the director of the piece. That's where I met Cully. And Cully had to come out. She had to come out and come save me. It was like one of those kind of I was there doing my job and people were kind of like looking over my shoulder like, I can't really cope with the face-to-face, the live, the difference. It wasn't a case of being able to talk about Black people on screen. I was right there in front of them and some of them couldn't cope with that. And I was very, very blessed to have a director who knew what it was, what that felt like, and came up and out, drove miles to be with the cast and support them through that experience. So that's like the 90s, just trying to do the work of a touring. So I had that insight and understanding what that's like to be in front of you and maybe not so sure about you. So there was that. And for 10 years of that, unless you're in an environment where people are understanding what that's like, you start to kind of go, you know what, I wonder if I had the choices of the content, of the teams, of where we're going, what I would do. I would like to have a go at that. I wonder if I can have a go at that. And it took a while for people to kind of let me have a go, but I got there in the end and I got gigs through theatre and education. That was my kind of road in. I liked, I can't help it. I'm a team player. I like to be the best for the team. I used to play netball. I did athletics. I want to cover and be the top of the league in everything I do. That's just the way it is. So when it came to CIE, it meant that I had to meet every single young person that ever lived in that area and do the best work, and that's what we ended up doing.
And do you think that sentiment that you just described there comes from that whole working twice as hard? That spirit of that sort of spirit, that reality that a lot of people of colour have to face, or is that something that that you felt that you've had as an artist because that's just the kind of person you are, a perfectionist, or something?
I mean, it's both, isn't it? I mean, thankfully, I am meticulous and tenacious and will not let go. Ask my husband. You know, you know, those are the things that I take pride in. Now, it took me a while, Taj. It's a good question, because it took me a while to understand the difference between my own self and what is expected of me. Really, actually, regardless of all that constructs of self for you, that's actually who I am anyway. And also, it's how I've been raised. My dad, he doesn't mess about. He's what he's doing. It's hard graft. Even now in his retirement, he's chopping the, he's chopping the ground, he's chopping the field. Every day he's out there keeping strong, and that's just how we've. You don't sit down and do nothing when you can get up and do something.
So can I just unpick that a little bit more, because that's a really interesting point. I guess, is there any not advice, but like, is there any bit of insight that you can offer other people of colour, artists of colour, who are grappling with exactly that, trying to separate their own self from this identity construct that, the Arts Council or, the government or, whichever construct you're living in?
The big old question. I love that. But somebody needs to do a PhD on that one, because it's probably been done already. No, at the end of the day, the bottom line is, wherever you are in the conversation, you have to keep working on knowing yourself, to know thyself and be true in every way. That's the strength I run with. That's why my 2 feet are on the ground, because I know myself. I know when I'm kind of, need to do better than that, or, when I'm flying. I know when I'm on a glitch, when I just know myself. It's taken a while to get to that, because even, I was saying the other day, I had a great mentor who really opened a key for me, and it was the difference between fear and excitement, which actually apparently in the body feels the same. And you just have to try and find out which one it is that you're leaning towards, which one's got the 51%. I'm always wanting to run to the excitement, but if it's fear, sometimes fear is necessary, because you shouldn't be in that spot or in that space. Yeah. It's just working through those things, but it's that key of knowing myself. And I suppose, I don't like to give advice. I'd like to share insights. I think that's a lovely word that you just shared there, because there's people to live their own lives and find their own way and come back and share their insights, and everybody grows. But for me, it's about, well, first of all, seeing patterns. That really helps. So when you're like, someone comes to you and they're talking to you, and they're actually talking to a person they know. They're not talking to you. They're talking to their friend they know, or the person they met, and they're wanting that same experience with you, because you apparently look the same. And it's like, you're having the same, it's like relationships, isn't it? So like, you can see that, like, somebody's had a really terrible ex, and they're going to work it out with you, and you're like, no, that's not me. Somebody else. And that's great. You realise that they're just having the same conversation, but it's not with you, and you're not having that. So it's this case of recognising that when it is you, when it is yours to pick up, then you pick it up and you have that conversation. But I think that's really exciting, when you get to be free, to be totally free is what I'm up for. I remember as a young artist, definitely, and I've heard people say it, where they go, I'm not a black artist, I'm just an artist. And, they're absolutely right. But in the construct of the United Kingdom, we have to stand up. We don't have to do anything. We do what we want to do. But I know that there was a choice made, and there's sometimes choices made for you. And, if you have a brilliance or a thinking, you can use that tool for whatever you want to do. But for me, it's about deconstructing what has been gifted and pushing forward with who we could really be.
And do you think there's, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that obviously find value in the identity of being a black artist or an Asian artist, or that kind of the ethnicity or the race define you. But some people obviously choose not to. They want to be an artist, and they want to be able to create anything and have that open. Do you think there's any? Do you think there's a right and wrong answer to that?
No, not in any shape or form. It's like everything. There's a big old world out there. You want to be Ava. You want to just, every piece of your film is about the cause. I know I made a choice 1 year. I just play about with choices per year. I have 5-year plans. It's like, this year I'm going to just keep doing this until people start noticing, and then you do another thing. What I mean? So for 2 years I made all my plays had a black woman in the centre and a dark skinned woman at that. I ain't being explicit about it. I'm just doing it. Now, some people are going to notice that, and some people are not. But that's the choice you make. You move to that. There's some things you don't pick up. Right now, I'm being discerning about the spaces I'm in. Then you're going to notice I'm not in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I like that though. It's all about semiotics, isn't it? If you look hard enough, you'll find it, but it's not going to be on the nose. So let's talk a little bit about Eclipse. So you've just recently passed your 100 days as director of Eclipse. How does it feel? What have you done, and what can we look out for during the period and beyond? Maybe.
How does it feel? Well, I'm very proud. I have to say, I wrote to my board. I let the world know. I thanked, God and my family, because I'm not doing any of that without them. Not any of those days without, that circle of understanding. I say how it felt in the first few days was like, whoa. And, for those who can't see me, but it was like you step up to something you really want, and then you have to step up. Because it's a huge space. It's a big legacy. It has it's middle scale touring company with a lot of gravitas, and to take that up from what you know me, I'm not afraid of saying who I am or what I'm about and landing it, but I also understand the responsibility. And I want to make sure that I am, and that isn't about the extra weight or burden. It's about doing the thing proper, making sure that I am the best I can be for Eclipse all the way, really. So that's how it felt. Then COVID came.
Are you going to, obviously, you need to make sure that this is not going to be your legacy, the COVID thing. Or I don't know, maybe you can turn it around. Maybe you can
use it to your advantage.
Listen, this is a moment in time. This happens to be the one that, I know that Lorne Campbell took over Cardiff on the 16th of March, the day that theatre decided to kind of collapse on its, So there are people in a worse position, well, I say worse, in a more precarious position. I'm very grateful for the fact that I got a chance to get in, at least, strapped down, put on the seatbelt before the thing went, I got, I knew my passwords, I knew where things were, I knew how to, I'd met some people, we'd closed the gift, we were in a very good and strong position. But, we are a touring theatre company in amongst the psychology. And so what faces us who are touring theatre companies are down the road is a whole nother ballgame. What's facing the theatre venues right now, not getting the box offices they're expecting, and our freelancers, is another story. We are connected in such a strong way to so many people that, we're trying to buoy that up. And I'm using the ship terminology because I've always used that. And that's how it feels. So, we're a big old ship and the waters are choppy. And we want to make sure that we keep, people as safe as possible all the way through. So, I think there's some major, major opportunities here.
Yeah, likewise, definitely.
Seriously, this is the time, because for all of us who have said what we need to say, we're not prepared to go back in any shape or form or reset to a more boring level. We have to push forward even more than we said we would do. That's where I'm at right now.
In terms of, just to pick on, there's another little question that I have in about your 100 days, but just before I get to that, this whole point that you've made about opportunity, a lot of people are now talking in the sector about this being a game-changing moment, where either organisations will flap or organisations will thrive. And we were speaking to actually I can't remember who we were speaking to, but we were speaking to someone senior, and he was basically saying that he was having conversations with some guys at Leeds 2023, and they were basically saying that the smaller companies, the smaller sort of companies, the mid-scale sort of companies have probably got more of a chance of surviving this than some of the bigger organisations like venues, who obviously are having to think in a different strategic kind of way. But a lot of people of colour that I've spoken to who are working in the industry are saying that this could be the time when really we start capitalising on that conversation, that age-old conversation about diversity in the arts, and it's making us think in a completely different way, where actually we're not now relying on venues, we're not now relying on institutions, we're having to be a lot more maverick and a lot more experimental, and that's what people of colour are all about, right?
Yeah, I'm locked into the ecology. If we're going to talk about theatre and theatre alone, then I'm not one up against another. Theatre venues right now look very differently to how they did when I started. And I'm very much up for leadership that is diversity-led in all the ecology. So I'm not freelance or venue. All of us are connected together. One goes down, it impacts on all of us. And that's how I'm going to be moving forward on that. I just think, as long as everybody's absolutely clear on this, is that it's, it's kind of tiring being this one kind of person running things and the content. We think we're kind of getting that. We already got that. We understand that. It's about who's also leading the conversations and making decisions. So that for me is where we head to, is with all that understanding.
And in this 100 days, more than 100 days that you've had, what are the highlights of the things that you've done or that you've set up or that yeah.
It's a good thing I write and it's a good thing I blog, because COVID makes you to forget what you did, who, and you know what I mean? Like where, what, and did I do? And I have to say the highlights are very different now to what they were before. I've been to Royal Opera House and kind of hung out with, Paulette Randall and, Roy Vise, and that was just great. 12 o'clock in the afternoon, kind of going, well, this is different. I'll bring my mum after this, and then you kind of, it's something beautiful about, there was just having people in the office. Yourselves came round and it's like we're sitting down and it's just, it's good to have that kind of understanding of what could be done and how you can support each other. And I find the highlights in the different spaces where most people find it. I would say, when the announcement came up, about myself and Shawab Iqbal, executive producer, and Stella Canning was leading that, it was an extraordinary time. The celebration, the hope, the kind of power behind that was just magnificent. It's enough to keep me going even to this point. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because that there's a lot of goodwill behind us to do our very best in whatever circumstance we find ourselves in. So that was definitely something I kind of keep to my heart and remember. I watching. I kind of find my places in the adversity. So we had some tricky times at the Gift, and we managed to kind of Shawab did an extraordinary job and got us into Leeds, our new home. And I love seeing the audiences arrive.
Yeah. And you've closed the Gift, which was playing just as you took the role. Is there any just in a maybe 2 or 3 very specific things in terms of what we can look forward to during the COVID period, or maybe any planning that you're doing after? I know this is probably you probably can't talk about it too much, but just to get some tidbits of what we could expect.
You're trying to get an exclusive, aren't you? I know you're trying to get an exclusive. Neighbours. No, at the end of the day, it's not about looking forward. There's always something going down in Eclipse, even if it looks like we're not quiet. There's stuff going down right now. Eclipse Online was launched about 4 weeks ago, and there's been an extraordinary amount of people that have been coming by in Eclipse's house and just sharing their amazing brain. Maya Chowdhury, Susanna Lynn, just being fantastic, Astrid Elberg. Really just good, strong leaders in their own right, doing their thing and sharing their experience. And obviously our just guest artists, but the artists that have been in the spaces, just been lovely watching. Especially when you go into some spaces, you're like, where are we? But when you're at Eclipse, we know where we are. We're the centre. What it is. So that's been lovely.
Eclipse Online, just for people who are listening who don't know what that is, can you just tell them a bit about what that is and when can people?
Yeah, every Wednesday it's kind of 8 till 9, and Ella Mesmer and Melanie Abrahams are leading on that. They are part of our Slate World program of work. They have created a space. When we first got into this kind of place, COVID, we were like, this ain't looking too good. I think we're going to be locked in the house for a couple of weeks. And then things got a little bit hectic. And then we just needed a space where people could come to and just be. Now, sometimes some people are in there and they don't have their camera or their mic, and that's okay. No one's forcing anyone to do anything. You can just be for an hour with others and take in the lessons, or you can just bounce in. It depends on how you're feeling.
One of the things we noticed, when with Eclipse, when it was pre-Amanda, we noticed that the definition of black artist was people of colour and anyone marginalised for their race or ethnicity. But we noticed a bit of a change. I don't know if it was since you've taken over, but it's now saying Black, British, African and Caribbean communities, as well as people marginalised for their race. So is there more of a focus on a specific community of artists now, or is it very similar to the kind of focus that was there before?
Listen, we're in the same place. It's just that we're moving with what's relevant, what's real. You know, I think there were questions on, and language evolves. Language evolves, and I think I've written about it. I had a conversation with my for real sister, and I said to her about where we were at the time in terms of the definition of Black, and she just laughed in my face. I'm not going to lie, that's what happened. And there's oftentimes in the theatre world we forget about the real world, and I wanted to align that a little bit more. Really, that's where I went to with that.
Yeah, I mean, because this is a conversation that we have with a lot of artists ourselves, don't we? We're ever talking about what does it mean to be. I mean, outside the theatre world, like you said, the whole political blackness isn't really a thing. I tried to explain that to my wife, who's mixed North African and in English, and she's like, "You're not Black though." And we're like, "Yeah, but in our world, it's kind of considered a term that's like an umbrella term for anyone."
And it's an historical term, and fair enough. Back in the day, 70s, 80s, absolutely, it was a united front. Everybody, and for people who still need to hold on to that, I respect and honour, and please, I'm very much into self-identification. But in terms of Ips's position, we wanted to, that was very clear for us, and we are, more than welcoming to everyone who's moving for the cause.
Yeah, cool. That's good. In terms of as a practitioner, what's your take on COVID and how it's affecting our communities at the moment, generally?
It's a for real situation, isn't it? We're keeping an eye on. We're leading on this for us to do Belay. Belay.org are doing their own research, waiting for the government to come up with the review. But we're absolutely at bated breath, wanting to know what's being said. I'm glad they're doing a review. I'm sure eventually there'll be an inquiry. But it's hit my life on a personal level. I've lost an uncle, I've lost a neighbour, and the number of my colleagues have also been impacted. So it's an absolute serious. When you're working on circles, then it's touching your inner circles, and everybody's impacted on that. I live within a community of major diversity. Everybody lives here. In the local school, there's 28 home languages, and so it is a real concern. And I have to say, within the arts industry, when we talk about protected characteristics, this has really got quite serious. This is protecting all of our communities, not just some.
In terms of obviously following this period of COVID, how do you what's your personal take on how the industry is going to come back to normal? Is it going to be a new normal? What's your how do you see this impacting and setting maybe a new standard for the way that we work?
Okay, that's a really good question. I think it's already impacting. I always think sometimes when you're doing strategic thinking, you're thinking it's coming, it's actually happening. So what's been useful in these last few weeks, 10 weeks or so, is actually it's been concentrated what was already here. So everything that was going on is now online. So you can see behaviours, you can see how people operate, you can see what rooms are being kind of managed or not. You can see who's welcomed where, and you can see how people, it's all there for everyone to see. And that's quite useful because we'll move forward how we've always moved forward. So there are going to be some people who are desperate to go back to what's that great question? Who does it benefit?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So it's like anybody who's really, really can't wait to get back to how it was, you have to kind of go, that's, and then you got the people who never had a contract and were battling to get a contract, was trying to get, they're like, we've got an opportunity now, so it's one of how do you want it, why is it you want to get back to exactly press pause and go back? That's why would you want to change something? You would love to change something, wouldn't you? So, and for those ones who just want to break up the place, mash it up and start again, so everyone has a stake in it.
Because we found that the power dynamic has obviously shifted quite considerably. I mean, now obviously there's so many links, there's so many newsletters, there's so many going around for digital this, and come and see our show, and come and see our show online at this, and it's a little bit complex, isn't it? It's a little bit complex, but at the same time, I don't know. There's definitely something about it, because it's no longer the venues. A lot of the venues are quite quiet in the way that they're dealing with this. They're having to obviously deal with it in a very different way, but. We found that this is really about now people trying to take more agency in what they do and how they present their work and how they create their work, the time, the space, and the energy. There's an article that I was reading about, I think it was by Toby Kiamatang actually, and she was saying that this during COVID or during the lockdown, there seems to be this incessant need of create. Yes, we're on lockdown, but we need to still create.
Not checking in with yourself.
But not checking in. And she's like, do you know what? It's okay just to kind of like, just be. Like, it's a lockdown period, do you know what I mean? Use this as an inspiration, and then maybe something will come out of it whenever the time comes. What's your take on that?
Yeah, Toby and Selena Thompson has said quite a few things on this, and Natalie Boo as well. I think interesting. Look, there's a lot to be said. I think agency is really important. Agency is exciting. That's what brings the whole Beanie Man and Bounty Killer stuff to the table. That's what brings no signal, all that kind of stuff that people can. I just think that's amazing. You can get in. Jill and Erica in the room one time, and you can, and or everybody that would not normally be in the spaces is enjoying what, the culture. That's really exciting. But the key thing about them is they're free.
Yeah. Especially the Bounty Killer and Beanie Man one. I felt like I was at sync.
Oh yeah, I saw that. You were honest.
I mean, the Jill and Erica one, I like Jill and Erica, I love them both, but it was just them playing their own tunes. But Beanie Man and Bounty Killer, like, that was like a clash. There was no...
And even the police arrived. So it's like, that's just but it's about the monetizing now. It's about the money. It's about the kind of who's paying for that. That's great. That's kind of like your little taster. That's when I say little taster, it's your free taster, because really and truly, Netflix, all that, you pay for that.
Yeah.
And so they start being able to sustain a living, because the other day, that's the argument, isn't it? It's the kind of...
That is the art, actually. It's how do you get people to pay for the art? Because I think there's quite a few things that I've been reading where actually obviously there's a lot of things going on for the NHS, a lot of people giving free food and free this and free that. A lot of doctors are just like, look, it's cool, it's all very well, but we don't need it. Yeah. We're not a charity. The NHS is not a charity. And I think artists to do that as well. I think there's some artists out there who are like, oh, do you know what? We'll just put it out for free because, it'll make people feel better, blah, blah, blah. So there's a place for that. Art does do that. But at the same time, it is people's livelihoods. It
is. There's been a lot of conversation about actually expertise as well. So clearly, can you imagine all the people that are doing the streaming and all the digital are like, who are these not turning up here with their rubbish? Do you know what I mean? It's like, if you're a specialist in that area, and then someone comes, imagine it, you're kind of like, like, what is that? Horrible. So no, I think, discerning, quality. I think it's important that we do think about our craft and absolutely go for it. I'm not compartmentalised. I don't think you do that. I think they do that terribly in this country, certainly in Europe, where we go, you are a dancer, you're a visual artist, art is art, please, go across the boundaries. And really, that's where you get the exciting stuff. That's where Barry sits, push through, really kind of find exciting spaces. So I was in that place where immersive theatre with Shirley Harris and Vanessa Sart's work that we were doing with trumpet, that was really pushing through. I say because obviously that's on pause, a space where digital animation was really kind of working through with the live art, and I loved trying to working through the challenge of that was really exciting.
And just finally, what are you up to right now? Because I know you went into a period of hibernation with writing and stuff. So what is Amanda Huxtable doing right now? Maybe as AD of Eclipse, but maybe just you as a person, as an artist. What are you doing artistically or spiritually or anything?
Look, I've got a gorgeous tree outside my house, and every day I wake up and see that tree, and I'm glad for that. That's what I do. I wake up and go, thank you. Here again. There's that. And the light is changing, and it's just, it's extraordinary. Just watching. So there is a real privilege to be able to see the detail of life. You know, the fact that the birds were happier without us. You know, you can really take in. You know, I remember one of my first drama teachers said, you know, observe, and I'm a deep observer. And so to actually take in the world in this different way has been extraordinary. What I'm doing right now is essay writing. You know, I constantly study, and right now I'm doing, you know, how the industrialization impacted on the working class in the 19th century. So that's something.
Like a PhD.
You've got Newcastle, you've got Sheffield, you've got Manchester, you know, you've got Huddersfield in the curtain. You've got the whole story about how, you know, that 19th century growth and how that impacted on us as a people. So, you know, in all sorts of ways. Whenever I go into a room, I'm always checking in. I go, right, so where were you 100 years ago in history? Because it makes a difference to today. In terms of my own artistic practice, you know, Shawab's always keeping an eye on me on that one. There's a lot of report writing to do. As you know, you're doing this kind of work, you have to make sure that you're accountable and you say what you do, you know, what you did. But I have to, you know, I'm artistic director and CEO, you know, and the CEO stuff is heavy. The AD stuff is heavy lifting because you want to make sure you make the best of your work. And so I've made sure that I'm engaged with writers. You know, there's been some exciting times talking to writers. There's nothing I like more than diving into a script. Give it a script, a fresh script. You know, and then people give you the permission to get in and go, well, you know, that's it's a privilege, and to bounce. And it's like going out for a tennis match. You kind of go, so what you know, you're in there kind of working through and just sharing your response and talking about the relevance of it and why now. And you just keep asking, what do you want? You just keep asking those questions, and those writers just keep coming back. And I just love that. And to see that, just you can see the show. I think for me, you know when it's right, when it's like, you know when it's right as a director, when it's like, I want it to be me making it, but it's okay if it's not, as long as it's made. As long as it's made. Really important. That's what's exciting.
Well, I can't wait until you're back as our next door neighbour again. I can't wait to come and see another Eclipse show again.
I can't wait to make it. Trust me, this is ridiculous. It's like, pause for how long? I'm itching to make work. In fact, I'm really seriously thinking I'm not going to give that exclusive. I'm leaving that for another time.
Oh, good. Well, on that note, Amanda Huxtable, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.